Okay, that was a bit loud. Okay, let's get talking right in here, right now. All right, so this is the deal. This is the situation. In here, right now. All right, so this is the deal. This is the situation. All right, so cut at that. This is that puts a bit loud on it still. We need to fix that real quick. Um, actually, screw it. Let's just do it this way. All right, talking at this volume. Cut right about when I close this window. Okay. So, hello everybody. Welcome back to Platform Killers' devlog and all of that. Actually, restart. So, welcome back to the Platform Killer devlog and update situation thingamajig series that I am doing on LearnUT. Going over the process step by step, giving updates on the platformer multiplayer game that I'm currently developing by myself, trying to get the prototype created before then I start working with other people to refine art assets as well as also clean up programming code. So right here, what you're saying is the previous update, which is just there was no commentary. It was just all footage from a playtest I was doing with my brother. So this is showing off kind of the general feel for what the game is shaping up to be. It's a platformer game where you have simple attack buttons as well as also wall jumping and movement and jumping, standard jumping with no wall required. And it you're placed into challenge rooms. And the challenges is either defeat the other player by combat, by pushing them into the kill zone, or race to the finish before, and in those cases, it's like first person to get to the goal. It's safe from the kill zone, but if you get in the kill zone, then the other person gets a point. If you die, the other person gets the point. And if you, and that's the main objective of the game. So, in the final release of the game, one thing that's going to be in there is that, as you see here, it's just looping the same few room designs that we have. What the final game's direction is going to be is that it's going to be randomized rooms. So, there will be like set layouts. Like, I'll make like 50 different map layouts, and it's the first person to get to 10 points. But those 50 map layouts will all be randomized. So, when you hit goal or when somebody dies and enters the kill zone, the next room that gets loaded up is a brand new level. So, but it's completely random. And another thing too is I plan on having more arenas like the one you see right here. This is a versus arena, and I need to do more versus map designs. But also for versus maps, I'm going to have it that you can have different weapons on the versus maps. So like you might have like a gun challenge map, or you might have a um like a heavier melee attack, something like that, to keep it varied. And then racing maps are just going to be all more going to have more and more features that are found in typical platform games. So like Goomba type enemies, where if you get hit, you get hurt, or switches that destroy bridges, or spikes and all that type of stuff. However, the way damage works in platform killers is that the only way you die is if you hit the kill zone. Things can hurt you by knocking you back, but death only happens with the kill zone. So today I was working on basically getting more of how the exact features will implement and redoing how when you get hit as a player, your character responds, and this will basically dictate, building other hazards because I can't build hazards if I don't have a way for the player to get hurt. So here, as you see, there's a little, there's a couple, well, there's zeros, but, circles that are on the characters that are underneath them that are individualized health bars. If I hit the character, they they get have the health bar, -1, and the little exclamation point indicates that they are getting hurt. These are all placeholder assets, by the way. In the final game, there's a good chance that I might, the depending on like if it's more fun and readable to have the player's health be next to their score count, maybe the game will go that way. Um, but or the HP will follow them. But things like the hurt stun animation being them having no hurt animations to just exploration point over their head. That's complete placeholder type stuff. So be aware. The final game is not going to be using a zero sprite. But anyway, so as you see here, you can get them, and once they have 3 hits, and then they're down. When they're down, you can't hurt them again. And if they are in a state where they're already hit, you can hit them again, like knock them, but though they don't take health damage when they're have the exclamation point above their head. But down, you stay down for a longer period of time. And if maybe I can make it that you can get pushed still if you are downed. Uh, that is up to if it's more fun or not in playtesting. It is as simple as just going into this line of code here and just commenting out a couple things. But if that is decided as not uh, I mean, if this is decided to be just as fun, then we can stick with this type of system where it's still 1, 2, 3, they're down, and when you are down, like I'll just have this character walk into the other character. As you see, they can't move when they're there, so they can't move while they're getting hit, and they can't move once they're downed. So the main idea being there is that if you're racing with somebody and you're above the ledge, you might be able to knock them down and KO them. Or if you're in the arenas where the rooms are closing, you have a thing that basically dictates the consistent flinging at one another. If it was push only, well, we were kind of getting some symptoms of what would happen if everything was just push to other player and nothing else. Because in here, hopefully I can scrub through some footage and find some of the stuff happening. You would kind of get situations where there was too much flinging at one another going on, and it was basically like the person not getting hit didn't get enough like as you see it's I don't know, just the feel feels a little off on that, um where the fact that everybody can just fling at one another, no penalty for really getting hit, aside from a little bit of push, but then the push being pretty easily counteracted with one another. It feels less like hits and more like weak slaps. So, like as you see there, you also had the thing too where they kind of were pushing each other and kind of doing this weird climbing glitch. And the climbing, I don't like. I don't think it should be in the final game. So the 3 hits KO thing is what is going to be implemented and built off of for the foreseeable future for things. And um, yeah, as you see there, Red was trying to push Green back while they were running, but then, uh, that he wasn't really getting pushed back that much because there wasn't anything disabling the trajectory of movement while in the air. Here now, it's just like if he gets hit, he can't really push back against it. He's just he gets hit the way he does. Now I could increase knockback on the hits and all that. Those are variables that can be changed, but it as is implemented yeah sorry, I'm blanking a little bit. I can increase the distance, but I like the idea of having it that you can't like at most it's like this double swat thing where if you're really close to the hitbox, you might be able to get double swatted, but you can only do that um, when you're close to it. So that's the thing. So one thing I do gotta make sure about is that there are like this weird spot where if the characters are overlapping like this, you kind of get that weird uh, climbing glitch a little bit. I don't fully know what's up with uh, the reason why it tends to favor one side over the other. I think it may have something to do with the way that the layering of objects inside a scene, because similar to like image editing and video editing, in Godot, uh, by default things exist within the same layer, I mean, not the same layer, sorry. They can't exist within the same layer is what I meant to mean. So this is read backwards, by the way, from bottom to top rather than top to bottom. So color rect right here, that's the little background that isn't the ugly gray, but is the dark blue to make it feel more like a proper game and not just, some test environment. But here, green is above player one in this room. Uh, yeah, so green's on the top layer. If green's on the top layer, then that means that things that that red green gets registered before red. So there's that. Um, I think the last thing that's worth mentioning on all of this for Platform Killer is that, well, this game is compatible with either keyboard or gamepad. It is not. A gamepad is what I would recommend playing the game with. You get like a more like polished experience through doing that due to the sheer fact that the platformer genre just is best consumed through gamepad. But if you have it on keyboard, is entirely possible that if you do the good old somebody uses WASD and the other person uses arrow keys and the numpad, like share a keyboard, you can play this game locally that way too. Um, Given the size of the team that's working on this, and given my current technical knowledge, the only way I would see this game getting online style multiplayer is if it is um it is like if the polished version, because all I'm working on here is the prototype. Knowing how I'm coding all of this and my coding knowledge, the programmers that I'll be working with will probably just start fresh and use this as a point of reference in terms of like how things are implemented and how things feel. So probably at that point of project, if there's any programming, it would probably be done in that phase. But if like say I make this prototype and I release it on like itch.io, um, that version of the game, that prototype, like the alpha version of the game, prototype demo, whatever you want to label it as, would you would have to use a third party app like Parsec. So that is kind of one of the setbacks of making a multiplayer game. Same time, I feel like that by concept of this game, the fact that it is multiplayer is the reason why it's interesting. Because if this was a single player only experience in the platformer type thing or guy's first video game, you've seen that all the time. It's not as often as when you see the multiplayer stuff. On top of that, too, it can get like that just a little bit of gameplay that I was doing with this test with my brother. Like it's actually a fun game. You can actually get into it with just as little here. So it's all about trying to scale things up and trying to get more going on. Now, one problem I will say that uh, this game is running into design wise, and something I'm trying to be cautious of, is that so I know people in my life that are as much of gamers as I am. In fact, maybe even more in some cases. But then I also know a lot of people who are not nearly as, for lack of a better term, game literate as I am. Uh, Not saying this in a way to, like, yeah, say like, like, throwing anybody underneath the bus, but like, say the wall jumping mechanic for this game. The way that wall jumping I, built all of this around is very Mega Man style wall jumping. It's but when I showed people uh the this style of wall jumping, it's kind of been a little bit of divisive where more casual player people that have tested out, like the platforming engine I'm using to build this off of. It's the response to it was that it was too difficult. And I made tweaks to try to make it easier, like increase the height of when you jump off the walls and all of that. But at the same time, wall jumping is, so trying to make it any like simpler to perform causes other interferences. Like if you make the character, like if you once they're on the wall, they stay on the wall, and you don't have to consistently push into direction to do the wall to uh, jump off the wall, and you just snap onto the wall with a slide. Well, that gets more annoying because you snap onto the walls all the time, and that just doesn't feel right. So um, all of that tangent to say, luckily I was able to say that tangent without naming names, but all in service to say with that tangent is the fact that I want platform killers to be something that is fun to play, but it's more party game-ish, and I don't want it to get too complex too fast because I want a lot of people to play it. I want it to have like a skill curve to it, but I don't want it to be something that's like hardcore gamers only played this game or enjoyed the game. Um, Granted, I feel like if it's a game that you've played platformer video games before, which is a genre that I'm confident in saying that the majority of the people who've consumed video games have played at least a single platformer game. Um, it uses the basis that's very familiar to work off of. So you have that. Um, and like a lot of the hazards and mechanics that I have yet to program are things that aren't too much wheel and reinvent and check. Heck, I'd argue that probably most of the things that are being done to reinvent the wheel, such as kind of having the racing game where you can only interact with attack things, and you don't have as many things like you jumping and pushing each other physically into space. And you can only do it through weapons. The fact that weapons don't, of course, that idea isn't exactly the best original, but weapons being the only thing, weapons not being able to kill you, and future hazards not being able to kill you, it's just only the kill zone that kills you. The fact that it's going to be basically it's single room challenges that are randomized, um, and they're mixed with racing and fighting. Those types of things. Like the only thing that I really think that's that I feel like is like pushing things in terms of like uh, you know, quirk in video games, quirkiness, things that aren't um, for lack of a better term, vanilla, something that's a little bit more spicy, uh, comes from those elements of the game. Yeah, if once I get like a randomizer to randomly choose a room within the sequence when you hit the goal, when I get that script and figure out how to get that set up, that script or function, one or the other, um, that's because maybe as simple as a function within the script, but whenever I get that set up, it's whatchamacallit, that is the main thing that's like after I did that, everything else that's being added to the game are conventional platformers things like Goomba enemies. You've seen that before. Spikes, every game has that. Maybe like a drawbridge that you can cut and the other player can't run across. I mean, that's basically the ending of every single Mario 1 boss fight. All of that that's more of the um you know it's it adds more depth to the game, adds more variety to the game, and it fleshes things out. But it's also very much preying off of an expected, pre-established literacy. I'm assuming like people who've played this have played a like either Super Mario Brothers on the NES or Super Mario Brothers on the DS. Um, maybe even like a browser, platformer game. I I'm expecting this not to be the very first platformer video game picked up by people. I'm expecting this one to be like, um, you know, no, I'm not expecting. I'm trying to think of the right way to word it. I'm not like I'm not expecting this to be the first platformer game that people are going to that somebody's ever going to play in their entire life. But I want it to be so that if this is like say number 2 or number 3 on that list, it's not so much being tossed at them that it's like too complicated. Because not to go too much on a ramble there, but like as far as like 3D platformers go, so like Mario 64 actually throws quite a bit at you. Um, like for a first foray into like the whole entire idea of a 3D platformer. Um, which is probably one of the reasons why there's like certain tone backs on things like Mario Odyssey, like the amount of options that Mario can do, as at his base form, not counting power ups and all of that stuff. Um, Having the main mechanics be jumping and throwing your hats, and then different types of dives and jumps. That basically variants of jumping and variants of throwing your hat. Those are your two actions in Mario Odyssey. That is a lot less, to swallow than like something like Sonic Generations, which I love. I would love to, make a game like that. But Sonic Generations, though, it's like it's like driving a nice sports car, and it's fun because you've driven these other cars before, as in you've played these other platformer games before. So when you get this one that has like, oh, it has a boost button, it has stomp, it has drift, it has slide, um there's these things like you have to make sure you do like these rail grinds. You have to make sure like have all these interactions with the obstacles. You have this homing attack. You start saying more on there, and and all of the things I listed adds to the fun to the game. And yeah, I don't think that there should have been anything less than that. You know, in fact, I argue that the threes, like Sonic Forces, which came directly after it, added, took away a lot of that and made it and showed that the reason why Generations was so fun was that whole entire mixture of all the stuff was throwing at you. But like I would never say, oh, if you want to play a Sonic game, Sonic Generations, that's your first one. No, I'm choosing Sonic 2, where Sonic 2 is basically a single action button, which is jumping, and a specific button combination for the spin dash. It's I'm a bit rambling here, but the point being is that if you want to make yeah, no, Sakurai, when he made Smash Bros, he identified a specific issue where the reason why a lot of people didn't play fighting games was the fact that uh the amount of like what is expected and the barrier to entry is a bit more difficult than what you could get out of a party experience. And the platform killers is definitely going to be more of a like I'd argue that by the end of me making this thing, platform killer will be a more of a party game than Smash Bros is. I'm definitely leaning more on that side of the spectrum. I would classify it as a party platformer rather than with the competitive element to it. But uh, it's not going to be a platformer fighter by any means. Uh, um, Sakurai, what was smart about him is actually, is that um he knew when designing Smash Bros that if he since there was like a lot of new that was being tossed at people, be it people who are familiar with fighting and people who are familiar with platforming, and making a game that bridges the gap between the two, there's still something new. Like at least 50% of the game isn't going to be new to somebody. But by having that but by having certain elements that are streamlined, like not having buttons that button combinations being them just directional inputs with buttons, and having it be the same directional inputs and buttons for every character to do something, and you don't get to all that stuff where like, oh yeah, this character has Hadoken commands while this other character never uses a Hadoken command, and has charge moves only. Charge move is a very vague, I mean, that term, like, if you don't understand fighting games, you wouldn't even know what a charge move is. But point being, though, is it's like the idea of like, character being charge moves and a character being, just, like, oh yeah, you do these, you have to make swooping motions with the joystick and hit buttons to attack. That's a lot, um, if, um, if you expect somebody to just pick up and play and start hitting buttons, they're probably not going to do anything cool. And if they do, it's going to be by complete accident. Uh, Smash Bros. Bridges that gap where you can start doing things, but when you pick up a character you've never played before, you kind of have like a idea of where you're headed, an idea of where you're going. You're not completely, fed to the wolves with that character. And um, All of this is in for service to say for a platform killer. Uh, when the design this game, I want to make the buttons only limited to you move around, you can jump, you have an action button. Now the action button may change depending on the room you're in, and there will be some visual communicator to explain what that different change is. But that whole like this right here is as complicated as I want to go with it. The idea of that if you hold on and if you just walk into like jump into a wall and you hold that direction, you can slide, and if you hit jump again, you bounce off in the opposite direction. Anything more than what I just displayed there is too much. So um and and by having this like consistent hook and anchor for the way that the characters operate, when I start throwing them in different environments in different rooms where yeah you have a room where it's like, oh, the thing is like rising water and you have to go underneath the cavern to get safe, or the things are closing in on you from left and right. All these different changes are a lot for people to take, but if you have but um, if you keep you have to keep like a lot of familiarity with somebody in a game, and you can't change up the rules all of a sudden on them for them to follow the game. WarioWare, and this is the last thing I will say, and if anybody's listening to this, sorry that I rambled for a bit, but I think a lot of what I'm saying here is important and interesting to this. But WarioWare, um, Master Zone is like the gold standard as far as I'm concerned on throwing people into a random situation, but you instantly understand why that situation works. You instantly don't like when playing WarioWare, you don't ever have a situation of what button am I supposed to press? What am I supposed to do? And how they do that is that they just give you a prompt, which I'll probably end up doing this game where I'll probably have a prompt that says race or kill, between, uh, you know, for the room, so it's very clear like what type of room it is. But WarioWare, it gives you a prompt and it tells you at the very beginning these are the controls and this is what you do with it. When you play like a specific set of micro games, like if you play like all of like Dr. Kurogo's micro games, the DS version. All of his games are rotation. So while you have different objectives to do, like either you're you know like either making a image not distorted anymore, or you're trying to um or you're trying to drive a car, you still rotate with the little DS stylus, and regardless of I'm trying to think of how to put it. So you have all of that there. And like when Mario goes to crazy, it's like the only time where they change controls are you is like after you played through every single character's mini games, which the different mini games like they're themed around a specific control set. And then they might have remixes at the like after you beat the entire game, where they throw all the past mini games you completed into just random combination sets, and then that's when you'll might have tap one game, rotate another game. But when you're still learning the game, when you're still introduced to it, and when you're playing what is the main game, not the post game, playing what is supposed to be made for the majority of people and not as like what's for the hardcore people, the hardcore bonus, the main game just keeps it simple to like you do this one action and it translates to all these games. you know, you you only hit the A button, but the context of what the A button is doing and like what's timing it is very different between what micro game you're getting thrown into your face into. That WarioWare, like that specific piece from WarioWare is what I'm trying to really keep with platform killers and not carry too far. So, um, that is like going to be one of the big challenges of the game, because if it's yeah, a lot of times I feel like the answer to some of these, design questions I've been facing, probably not too much as vocally, but thinking about this game and trying to figure out what I want to do with it, uh, you know, can be answered with, different, specific things, but, I feel like those things would make the game too, hardcore or something like that. If you had the option to basically, Like, one thing I've been trying to figure out is like, should he have the ability to basically control what direction the other player hits? Should he have a, like, if you hit the attack button and down, do you throw the character behind you? And then if you press the attack button standard, do you hit the character, and throw them in front of you? That type of stuff I think about. And I was really considering the throwback thing, but then, right now I'm trying to see if I can get as far as the game and make it fun without needing the throwback and trying to avoid doing that um, because if that's added to the game, then that's, it's just another level of complexity and another thing for people to follow. In the shooting mode, yeah, that's definitely going to happen in the game. That's there, but like, how many different variants of weapons are there going to be, or is shooting and swords going to be the only two options? When you have, will shooting games not be fun because you can't really dodge anything? So you have to have, so will I have to put a duck mechanic in the game? Is getting hit like, it is getting hit really going to become a thing where it becomes unfair that you don't have a defensive block mechanic that I'm going to have to figure out how to implement some sort of block or parry system into this game. Now you're starting to sound like a platform fighter. All of this stuff you have to be aware of, conscious, and figuring out, like, okay, just don't go down this rabbit hole, because if you go down this rabbit hole, then you're making a completely different type of game. And I argue in a really weird way. Uh, the reason why this game shouldn't be more complicated is because of the fact that it's this game and not because it's an additional mode. If, like, say I made a fighting game, I mean, not a fighting game, sorry, like a beat 'em up platformer game, like something like, think like, I don't know, like, say like the Kirby games, where you have the power ups where you can do combos and all that stuff, but then it's also still very much a platformer adventure. If what becomes Platform Killer was an additional multiplayer mode within this Kirby game, um, the fact that you have that pre-established context and from like the rest of the Kirby adventure, to basically cue everybody into how all the functions of like how Kirby works, and then having a variant mode that you play with somebody else who assumingly is going to be interested in the same type of game. They're also interested in Kirby. You're going to have a more of a mutual understanding. So when this mode throws new things at you, you have that mutual foundation of what Kirby is. So the mode can basically bring in like all the Kirby elements and go crazy. Platform Killers is standalone, this version of the game, and doesn't have, like, it's not like a multiplayer mode to a campaign thing. So um basically the only familiarities I'm working off of is not a specific franchise familiarity or specific singular titles familiarity. It's a genre familiarity. So because I'm working off of genre familiarity rather than, franchise familiarity, a lot of the quirks and the spices that Kirby has to like, say, like being able to fly like a balloon or the copy abilities, if I toss that into platform killers and also made the objective be a randomized, challenge, multiplayer competitive, party game, that's a lot to toss that weird, to toss a copy ability on there. But if it's a platformer game with the copy ability, and then it has this other mode, you know, I'm reiterating what I'm saying already, so you get that. Anyway, I'm going to cut off this feed now for the time being. It may have been a little bit rambly. It may have been a little bit long-winded. Hopefully, it's interested to anybody who's interested in looking at all this type of stuff. But it's, the reason this is supposed to be documentation logs for a reason. Last thing I guess is worth mentioning is that this week, I was working, for my startup stuff. During the main week. So this weekend, hopefully, I'm going to be able to do more platform killer, and I gotta you know um work on it. If you pay attention, what's going to be added as new features, and the one feature I gotta implement that is more so a modification to something that's pre-existing is the randomization of the rooms. So After I add that in, I'll probably add in like the shooting mini game too, because that's a variant of how the player character function. Um, I'll probably add that game mode in, and then and make some rooms for that, and then work on scene randomization, and then after I uh do that, then it will be adding platformer obstacles and menu elements. So that's the road path. Nothing graphical or design related is happening until I get all the gameplay together. So for the time being, like you're probably like if I work on this thing consistently throughout October, maybe maybe next month is when you're going to start seeing me actually put original assets in this game. But throughout this month, no original assets. It's going to be I'm going to be working with placeholders. Anyway, that's it.